The grace, the greatness, the magnificence of spiritual experience is what we will empower one another with during this hour, and it's simpler than anything ever. There is a God. Just know that in your heart and soul, and know you're not reaching for a better life here and your work or your family. You're reaching for what God is, who God is, which is an infinite spiritual presence. There are many, many, maybe 1 billion, 500 million truly spiritual people in the world. Or maybe it's 4 in 100. It doesn't matter. But when you're spiritual, you know. You've been aware of it. Everyone in the world has experienced God at some point. Though people stop being human at times, God doesn't stop being God. And the presence of God is infinitely more effulgent, more kind, more dear, more true, and more present than everything else by infinity. One day I was in the city. I had a beautiful place there for 1.5 years teaching meditation, and otherwise I was alone all the time, and I just took a walk down to Ghirardelli Square, and I went up to the 2nd floor. I didn't see people whatsoever about 4 years then. I had a beautiful place in the Redwoods that I rebuilt and so forth, and lived there alone. And then up in the city, my friend Carol called and said, "Why don't you teach a meditation class on Saturday?" Okay, so people came. So I'm alone. On a Friday afternoon at 4, I walk up to Ghirardelli Square, and there's a beautiful ornate Indian wooden door on the 2nd floor. I had no idea where I was at. I wasn't thinking. I just float. When you're spiritual, ask anyone who's spiritual in your life. You just float. You're wearing heavenly robes of grace and dignity and purity and wonder and kindness and intelligence, actual beyond genius, because you see everything exactly as it is. And you see right through everything in the world because you are what's been called a mystic. In other words, you actually have a very warm friendship with the Almighty, which is God, which is an endlessly kind presence. So I lean on the door, and I kind of fell through. And then I looked around, and all of a sudden, a beautiful place, and there's a very lovely Indian gentleman there, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know how I got here." And he said, "You were guided." And we both smiled lightly, and then it was the Gaylord of India restaurant, and he was the owner of 10 of them, and I helped him get a place down south here, and after that we became buddies. But the point was, everything you need, everything you want, everything you desire, that's right for you, that's spiritual, will occur after just hearing these words. It's an empowerment. You are a spiritual presence. If you're interested in God and this and mysticism, then you know that life is that simple. And you'll know that you'll handle life like a great champion, like my buddy Terry. You can handle anything all the time because you never stop. There is no reason to stop, to quit, to give up. And there's every reason to continue. And there is no map for this. There are no writings, there are no teachings, there are inspirations everywhere, and reminders, and great works of spiritual art that you'll find in your friend's eyes. If you look, and looking simply means, let go for a moment. When I've taught people to relax over the last 60 years or so, I remember in India doing it. Anyway, and so I would simply watch their chest breathing in and out, and let's say count back from 100 to 90, and at 90 you'll be at peace. Now, if I just say it, I know people will feel it because I'm spiritual. You're spiritual. You know when someone, great artist or an actor you love, they talk, you feel that presence because that's what they're presenting, that's what interests you. When you're in love, you are aware of the heart of the one you love. Doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, you're always there. Your child, your mother or father, you're always aware, right? I come home from Camp Lejeune or whatever on a Friday night, 2 in the morning. We had an Alfa Romeo 5 speeds forward when I was in the Marine Corps in the beginning, and I'd arrive somewhere in the middle of the night, and of course I'd walk up to my family steps in South Philly, and my mother would open the door the moment the mother knows these things. And you realize these things later on in life, unless you're spiritual. If you're spiritual, you're like my friend Terry, Tim, Master G here. I'm going to be very clear about this. This is part of spirituality. It's very human. You'll have these unimaginable mystical experiences with God. Oceans of trillions of suns of presence. This is not from a book. This is my experience. I'm one of many millions of spiritual people. And point being that there is a God. You're not a lost soul. If you're spiritual, you're here for a reason. And it's not just to do some good, and this is the point I'm going to. You will not leave anyone behind. That can happen if you're spiritual. I'm trying to add this human note to the heart of the teaching, that if you're spiritual, you'll find a way to help, to heal, to raise up, to care for, to love, to empower, to ask for forgiveness, to give forgiveness to all the decent people you'll ever know in your life. At some point, this will happen. It's very human. Spirituality. God is the personableness. He is the person that the universe is, but it's you. I could say God is Sarah, my mom, because God is my mom, Sarah. I've never used her first name, but that's Sarah, and every now and then when I'm going through living hell, I say, Mom, ask God for so-and-so, because I know He listens to you. I've always been enlightened, always been 1,000,000,000% aware of God, but your friends, your loved ones, you're not going to let this world exist as it has over these years. Yes, you're going to study the scripture maybe, or whatever great writings or teachings, you're going to pray, you're going to be involved with a group or not, you're going to do some form of contemplation, reflection, recollection to understand, to gather it all together. But from a child, you've always known that somewhere in the great beyond, someone knows. For every drop of rain that falls, a flower grows. You know this because you are God's presence in this world. You are, I want you to understand this completely, God's hero. If you're here in this world, you dropped into this, it wasn't a mistake through that little aperture called birth, for a reason. You gave up divinity. And this happens to all good people in the world. You get caught in this and people make you feel like you're guilty, you did this, you did that, and I'm saying you cannot escape that. That's what the world is, so you're here to rise up through it. You brought a bag of good soil with you and a little moisture, and you're going to regrow yourself in the middle of this. Aren't you? There are no mistakes in your life. Things that have happened that are horrible, and I'll say this again, there's nothing more horrible. I have gone through everything that all of us go through, and to make you look guilty or this or that, and it's like, who cares? When you see the devil himself, which is this world, it's a living presence and it's nothing. It's a dead presence. It's a infinitesimal presence of fear. The world is fear-based, and as soon as you get beyond that through whatever means, like my buddy Terry can do it in every and any means. It's a very powerful voice within you, telling you to live, to build, to continue, to rise up in the middle of it, to have love, to have honor, to never let anyone take your dignity, to not give anyone parking space in your head again. It's a loud voice, isn't it? But there's nothing wrong with you. How'd you get here? You were guided. Wherever you go, to heaven. When will that be? Now. It's in understanding, it's in wisdom. You just lean against that door and fall in. I saw that door as something beautiful, and I leaned on it in a very delicate way, as I would do, and it just fell in. And I'm that way 24 hours a day. My friends can tell you I never thought of saying this or think I ever thought about it, but even when I'm alone in my home, I like slide across the floor. I don't step. I'm very light with everything, because this really isn't here to me. It never was. It never could be. I'm not trying to find all the right words for it. If you're spiritual, you know exactly what was suggested. You're pure, you're whole, you're spiritual, you're kind, you're decent. God knows. And the world tries to make you prove yourself every moment, doesn't it? And I know a lot of my buddies are professional fighters or Hall of Fame guys like Terry. And even there you get hit by these forces. You have to prove yourself, you have to live beyond yourself, you have to do something else. You can't let anyone know you're concerned about so-and-so. And I'm saying the last vestige of that will dissipate, will go up with the summer winds. When you take that one final step and don't give a damn about anyone or anything. It's not a rough emotion like that. It's don't give a damn. It's lighter than air. All spiritual thoughts, experience, all the exercises are lighter than air. You were guided. It's kindness taken to its logical endpoint, which is the other end of the rainbow, which is your heart, which is God's soul. You are God's valiant warrior. You're here to end all the madness. And when you do it within yourself, it'll be as though you've done it within everyone's self. And when you're here, you'll know what that meant. You'll leave no one behind. Because you're good, God knows. Because you're free, God knows. Because you've lived through a lot of madness to get to this point, haven't you? God knows. You and God are the same person. It's in perception. It's lighter than air. Everything spiritual is subtle. And more subtle than that and that. And just sit quietly in the evening, and that's what you have to do. That's the work. The rest are details. The world is an illusion, like the Buddha said. And all the mystical experiences, which can be the first moment you looked in the eyes of the one you love. Just, it all goes up, nothing matters. There is nothing else. Imagine falling in love with that should not be named. Guess who it is in your heart that falls in love with the one you so ardently appreciate? That's God. You're just reminding yourself to fall in love with the dawn and the early evening hours. And the night and the morning were the second day. There's nothing wrong with you. You are a spiritual presence. Remind yourself. Fear nothing. All the subtle fears are the presence of the devil through this, and if you just get very quiet, this won't be here. That's true religion. The human heart is the birthplace of God. Your heart is God. Find the answers with your heart by not seeking answers. Be still and know that He is God. Be still and know you are God. There's God looking to you, that loves, that cares, that desires. And when you'll work out all the shoulds and woulds and coulds with your friends and neighbors and loved ones, and the bad people who keep coming at you, and you're really going to enjoy, for somebody like my buddy Terry, you get really tough when you decide to do the right thing and you believe in God. It's an inner toughness. And you'll never walk alone. God will look out from your eyes, love from your heart. Walk with your step. You are guided. You are the purity of the universe incarnate. And understand you came into this hell to free it. You can never understand how weird it is until you're here. My buddy Peter Mink, my jiu-jitsu teacher, asked me the other day, he's quite spiritual, completely, and asked me my earliest memory, and I said maybe 2 months old or 2 weeks old, and he was taken aback, and I was shocked because I thought we had the same experiences, which we do in many times, spiritually, but sure, I remember laying in my crib and my grandmom's in front of me, and I didn't have concepts of what the world was. I simply knew that if she closed the blind wouldn't be on my eyes. I was on my back and I couldn't move, and it's a very beautiful, I've always had this experience of God, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. And so I remembered that, or other things, but you don't have to. I remember before birth and before infinity. Don't you? Aren't you a good human being? Aren't you a fine fellow? Aren't you sweet and kind and true and pure? Aren't you wonderful to God, with God? Don't let them take your dignity anymore. It's a very quiet war we wage. And in being quiet, you'll have the ability, the skill, the thoughts, the words, the healing presences to do or achieve anything and everything. These are not just words. You're God's best. You're here to wage war against everything that isn't kind, that isn't true, that isn't good, that isn't real, that isn't sweet and pure and wondrous. You are the light living in the darkness, and the darkness comprehends us not. But we are guided. We are fulfilled. We're rich with the flowering of kindness. Right? Have no fear. We're not talking about nice, we're talking about kindness. Not being nice, that's a fear. Kindness is very powerful. You always be in the center of your, it's like when I went my buddy's horse, and then I just, you sit deep in the saddle. And the horse feels that. You become like one presence. And if you turn your eyes this way and that, the horse will go, or if you're thinking, the horse will think, what the hell is there? It'll throw you off. It's like you're not part of the game. In other words, the sensitivity, that big, beautiful presence is sweet and perfect and pure and true, like your loved ones. So you don't look around, you just turn your eyes to the right, the horse will walk to the right. I'm just simply saying everything dear, and it's like your pets are more conscious of these little processes that people work. They call it yoga or whatever. There's no yoga. Union with God. Yoga is union with God. I've never done the mudras and all in Friends of Ask because it's like, it's always there. You have to do anything or undo anything or be anywhere or know anything. You just have to be aware of Father God, as Father God is aware of you and looks out from your eyes. Father, mother, sister, brother, it's all the same. You understand? Just this place of kindness. And it's powerful. My buddy Terry is a Hall of Fame athlete and all this stuff, but it's does security work, and he's the sweetest man in the world. So if you're trained, and I'm not saying you have to be a tough guy to do anything. What I'm saying is you do have to be kind. You do have to believe in God. And when you do, you don't need to be tough or kind or anything. You won't be anything. You'll be lighter than an evening breeze and kinder than the scent of flowers. You'll be everywhere. You are a holy personage. Never let anyone take that from you. You don't walk around being, it's, you know it within your heart, so I know I can do anything, 24 hours a day. Because I never leave that spot. I don't want or need or desire. When there's an opening, the stupid world will allow, and teachers will push it through, I call them the teachers, then I'll do anything divine. There's nothing wrong with you. Don't let them take your dignity, your kindness, your purity, and simply falling back deep in the saddle. Relax your breathing, relax your thoughts, fall in love again. And bring all the good people with you. The subtlety of fixing this one and that one will come to you. Sometimes it's in real life. 99% of it, it's within your own heart and soul. There's certain people that I hurt, 2 people in my life, that I would die for and hang for on the cross, but I'd hang for a cross for anyone. I mean, it's no big deal. We're not really here. There is no human ego or world. This doesn't exist to the spiritual. These are not just words. Be still. And you'll be you. You do have to believe in this divine power with you early on, because you'll be fighting very rough moments with the dark side, the devil, and you're going to like it. Because you'll see that all the dark stuff is from this particular being called Satan, and it's like, oh, bring it on. It's like you're messing with the wrong Marine, you know what I mean? I remember the first time I saw the devil completely it was funny, and then I knew he'd messed with the wrong person. Care for those you love. Heal everything and everyone. Remember the good things of your life. You are a divine blessing to this age. Don't let them take your dignity, and it's very quietly realizing this, and God will be there. It doesn't matter where you are, if you're taking a shower, or fighting a war, or riding your bicycle, or holding the one you love, or thinking about your child that's 23 and already left home for a year. Whatever it is, just do it more lightly. See it more fully. Thank you. You will fulfill your spiritual destiny. Thank you, Craig. Thank you for listening. Thank you.